Hello everybody. So in this lecture I will talk about shared variables. This is one of the 4 lectures that is really specific to Pharo. That's why we call it a code idiom. So in this lecture, what are the goals? We will revisit the concept of shared variable. So class variable in Smalltalk jargon or shared variable in Pharo jargon, and think about the scope of sharing. What does it mean? And we will have 2 other lectures that are related somehow to this lecture, plus the flyweight design pattern. So in fact, let's start to the basic things first. Instance variables are just local to one object. So there is nothing new here. This is something that you should have learned in any object-oriented lecture. So I don't want to spend time, but this means that if you have an object and it has a value, it is specific to this, and I have another one that will have a value. And the class, for example, imagine that this is a rectangle here. If I have a 8, so the class defines the variable, and each object has its own value. If I modify this value, so here now I empty it. If I modify this value, then only this object is impacted and not this one. So nothing new normally. This is just to remind you this. So now in addition we have shared variables. So shared variables are shared by all the instance of a class and in addition of a hierarchy. We will look at that. So this means that there is only one value that all the instances of this hierarchy will share. So if you modify one, there is only one, all the instances get impacted. And usually the shared variable is initialized at a load time because, or they use lazy initialization sometimes. So if you don't know what is lazy initialization, there is a lecture in one of the modules. But usually the shared variable is initialized at load time, and we will in a class initialize methods. And this is what I said. In Smalltalk, this is called a class variable, and in Pharo, we call that shared variable. We call that shared variable because they are shared. Let's look at an example. So if we look at the class color, so you can see that in Pharo. So the class color inherit from object. It has an RGB, so this means that each color has a red, green, blue element and alpha. But you have also constants that are basically defined as shared variable. Let's look at it. So visually, what does it mean? It means that I have the class color with the instance variable RGB alpha, and this class color also define shared variable. So this one are shared. And what you see is that the meta class, the color class, has an initialize method that will initialize the value of this shared variable. That is all the objects that are subclass or instance of the subclass of color are using this value. And now, once the system declares, so the class declares that it defines a shared variable, then we can use it either in the class part, so like here, or in the instance part, like here. So this means that private blue, for example, this is RGB with a bit end on a mask. So if we look at the code, for example, in the these kinds of setter methods, set red, green, and blue, what do we get? We get an instance variable here, and here we see, okay, we can directly access the shared variable that contains certain information so that we can do the bit on, bit shift, and trickery for the encoding of the colors. Similarly, this is what I show in the UML diagram. The initialize method on the class side will just set the constant that are used after by the compiler once for all. So if you take another example like a string, so the class string defines one shared variable that is called case-sensitive order. So this means that when you want to compare strings, you can say, do you care of the case or not? And what you see is that in the instance methods, the class string uses this shared variable, and of course the string class, the meta class, initialize, so it will initialize a type class, type table. I don't know exactly what is it, but here what I wanted to show you, this is that yes, here, this shared variable that is used in the instance methods is initialized in the class level. What you can also see is that symbol, which is a subclass of string, can use this shared variable here in the class level, but it could be also at the instance level. And this is how the class string is defined. So it defines, okay, that he used several shared variables. I don't want to go into detail, but this is just to show you that aspect. And here, if you look at, this was not on the UML, but the byte symbol, for example, on the class byte symbol, which is a subclass of symbol, which is a subclass of string, you have the instance methods that will use directly the shared variable. So at the end, shared variable, they are accessible from instance methods and class methods of the complete hierarchy and the subclasses of the hierarchy from the class that define the shared variable. This is what we have here in the symbol class on the class side. Then we can use this. So this is completely transparent for you after you just use it. And this is like your constant get accessed everywhere from within this hierarchy. There is an implication, or there are implications. There is a difference between shared variable and instance variable of the meta class. So what I want to say here is that, look at this. So if I have border style that inherit from object and define a default shared variable, this is not the same as saying that I can have an instance variable of the meta class. What is the difference? Let's look at that. This is a bit subtle. When you use a shared variable, there is only one. There will be only one here, for example, instance of border style for the complete sub-hierarchy. So if I draw it, it means that I have border style. And here I will point, there will be one instance of a border style, because the default, this is for the singleton pattern. And all this hierarchy, it can be quite deep. All the hierarchy here, they will share this instance variable. There is only one, this class variable. There is only one in the system, okay? Now, for this case, it means that I have the border style. So let me draw it like that. So I have border style, and I have one instance of the class. So this means that here I have border style. Border style is an instance of border style class. So up. And here I have default. What it means? It means that every class has its own instance, because the meta class describes the class. So this class is an instance of this meta class. So this means that this class has an instance variable value that will be specific to this one. So this is like, if you consider, let's draw it like that with round corner, or like this is an object and it has a value. You remember at the beginning I said, oh, every object can have its own value. This is the same for, so within all your hierarchy, those guys are classes, huh? But I draw them round to stress that they are objects. So this one will have, so every class in the hierarchy, and this one will have not the same visual effect. Every class in the hierarchy, so this means that this class, and this one have a different values in the instance variable default that they have, because they are object, in fact. Border style is an instance of the border style class, so it has the value of the instance variable of the meta class. If you want to check, there is a lecture on the Pharo MOOC on meta classes, and this is really interesting if you want to deeply understand this mechanism. But what you should remember is that if I go back, is that there is a difference between a shared variable and an instance variable of the meta class. The shared variable is, there is only one, this is one for the complete hierarchy, and this one, there is one per class of the hierarchy. So this means that they have different scope and sharing and semantic. So the conclusion, so pay attention when you modify shared variable, because you will impact many objects. And what is interesting is that shared variable can be really used to perform different sharing optimization, and we will present some of them in the following lecture.